Hi, welcome to my shop again. Today we're going to cover some new territory, different things. To do this, call it a bowl, call it a hollow form. We're not sure yet. One of the problems is undercutting the shoulders and making that inside form. So we'll talk about that and the options involved, and end up with a nice piece of koa crotch here from my good friend Fred in Hawaii, and come out with something pretty special. So hang in there, we'll get started. Now I've got it between centers like I always do so that I can maneuver this, and I've set it up on the balance point so that this is the top, this is the bottom, and so I want that top to be relatively running perpendicular to the bed. So we're going to just rough this out quick and get this round. And there's my crotch. I've got the crotch with the figure going through it with the two branches. And so this is going to be the bottom where all the character is, and this is going to be the top. This is just a push cut right into the side grain of the tree, so it's easy. Just have to go slow because there's so much air spaces here. This is now reversed and on the glue block, so I'm ready to start shaping. Apologize, I've lost my audio, and so I'm voicing over on a few spots on this. But we're ready to shape this now, get the roughing out done. Push cut right into the side of the tree again to true it up. You notice through all of this roughing out stage, there's no bouncing. The speed of the lathe is up so that the air spaces go by fast. Now in the bottom, I have to just true that up. In the top, I want to get all that bark area down so I know where my solid wood is to start my shaping. Still just push cuts right into the side of the tree, easier to do, to hog off with grain orientation. Now I'm doing a pull cut, so I go the right way to the grain on the outside from the center out to the largest diameter, handle down, bevel support on the side, slicing those fibers cleanly. Even while I'm roughing out, I'm using the right direction. The back area now, I have to prepare the back so that I have some waste wood down in the bottom, so that when I reverse it, that I don't make a funnel. And so we've got to get rid of some of this waste wood and leave a tenon that I'll later reduce for my foot. Again, back to a pull cut, handle way, way down, bevel on the side, and the cut direction from the center out is going to leave a clean cut. Even while I'm roughing off, I want to go the right way to the grain. So using a pull cut to shape it. Now I've got the outside shape all done. All of the creativity, all the design elements are completed. Have enough waste wood on here to be able to do whatever I want in the bottom when I reverse it. So now let's get on the inside and hollow this out a bit so that we can start to make a uniform wall thickness. Okay, the easiest way is to go right into the side grain fibers. The tree is growing pith in this direction. So I'm just going to go right into the side. I'm going to start and make a bevel supported cut. Each one I go a little bit deeper. Now if you notice, if I go any deeper, I'm going to start to hit the wing. So now I'm going to have to go over on the other side. Same cut, only the handle's in the opposite direction. On the other side of the lathe, same bevel support. I can only go so deep, and then the wing starts to hit the waste wood, so you got to go back and forth sometimes, right hand, left hand. The advantage of this cut is I'm going into the side grain fibers. I'm not fighting in grain to hog off with. Just makes it easier and faster. So now the interesting part, or the fun, starts. To undercut this shoulder, can't get in there with conventional tools, bowl gouges, spindle gouges, and have bevel supported cuts. And I don't want to stick a bowl gouge or a spindle gouge in here without bevel supported cuts and try to scrape in there with a bowl gouge. So this is when this bowl turns into a hollow form, and I have to get this area up underneath this rim and undercut the shoulder with a hollowing system of some kind. I could use a handheld if I really wanted to hang on for dear life, but I'm going to use my captured system, and just let me do this with fingertip control. With the captured system, I can be in complete control of the wall thickness. I know exactly how thick it is because of the laser, and make this nice and uniform and relatively light and thin. Okay, here's where it gets a little bit interesting. We have to, and I always do no matter what I'm doing, consider the grain orientation and use that to my benefit instead of having to have a lot of torn out grain or a lot of sanding to do. And so I want to take it the easy way and use the grain orientation going the right direction. So on the inside of that Let's just make this a big one here. There's our bowl. Let's just make a thick wall for now. Okay, where's the grain orientation running? Side grain bowl. All right, what happens on the inside? The inside of my bowl is no different than any other bowl. I have to go from the largest diameter towards the bottom. Now what happens to this upper level? I have to go from the largest diameter up to the rim. Okay. That, if I don't do that, those end-grain fibers and two patches on both sides of my bowl are going to get all torn out if I don't go the correct way. So I want to make sure that when I'm making my cuts that I make that direction. So what happens if I'm going in there with a bowl gouge or spindle gouge or something and I'm going this direction? That whole top half of that's going to get torn out, right? And I can't come this direction with a bowl gouge because the handle's going to get in the way and hit my rim. So there's only a certain portion of this that I could get in there with my bowl gouge with a bevel supported cut. So this whole area here is a no man's land. I can't use a bowl gouge, can't use a spindle gouge, and I need to be going the right way. So I'm going to use my hollowing system. Now I have two carbide cutters. One that's always going to the left. And if I put that in here, this would do a wonderful job. Here, the standard carbide cutter that always goes to the left, I can do this area. Now what happens when I get down here and I'm sucking the fibers the wrong way? I'm going to tear it out, tear it out, tear it out, tear it out. So I need to use the reverse angle carbide so that I can make my cuts the correct way. There's not everybody has the carbide cutter, the Hunter carbide cutter that I use, and it's on a dedicated angle, so it's slicing through these fibers. It would do a wonderful job to clean this up. So I'm going to use my standard high-speed steel cutter for a lot of this, just to show that you don't need anything fancy, that you can just use any cutter. And you could use this with a handheld tool also to get in there with some kind of a scraping cutter. Lots of different little handheld tools that have cutters on them. So, you know, many of you have those. All right, I've put the high-speed steel cutter in here and I've swiveled it around so it's on an angle and I can undercut and get into this shoulder. Let's think about grain orientation again. When I'm hogging off this middle, it's always easier to make a cut into the side grain fibers instead of the end grain. So I'm going to make my pass back and forth across this surface, not into the end grain. This is a crotch, so I have 3 end grain areas running by here. Every time I go by that end grain, I'm going to rip it up. Normally I would pull to the left, to the left, to the left. Well, if I pull to the left, I'm cutting right into the end grain fibers. I want to go into the side grain fibers. So watch the path that I use here. I'm going to go back and forth. And if you see, I'm making shavings, not sawdust. And I'm just using my fingertips. We're just hogging off at this stage. We're not going to make a thin wall here. We're going to use the laser to measure that later, so this is still just hogging off. Even when we can see in here, the shavings are going to get all piled up in here at the centrifugal force, going to pack them in here pretty tightly, pretty quickly, and we're not going to be able to see much. So we're going to abandon this camera angle here, and we're going to come out, we're going to just look at this side and stand comfortably next to this and just watch the laser. We'll set the laser up for this top section right here. Okay, I have dozens of videos on YouTube here for working and using with the laser, so we're not going to concentrate on that here, even though it's kind of tricky going around this tight radius. But we're going to set it a number of times, but we're going to set it now. We're going to set it maybe about 1/8 of an inch thick. So now, as I always do, I want to make the thin wall out here and work my way down in, but it's a little backwards because I want to make my cuts going from the large diameter out towards the rim. So I'm going to have to sneak up on that from behind. So you can see how the laser's a dot there, so that's pretty thick in there at this point. I'm going to come out here, look at the direction that I'm making my cut. I'm pulling out towards the rim, and now that laser disappears. Come out from the inside out. The laser disappears from the inside out. The laser disappears. Clean up my tool marks. Let's stop and see how that cutter is doing on this possibility of torn out grain. Wow, that is looking sweet. There's one area right here where there's some punky wood from that spalting. That's just a little bit rough. It's going to take a little bit of sanding, but that inside shape now, I'm rubbing it with my thumb there. It feels like it's been sanded already. I am really pleased with this so far. Again, the correct weight of the grain is from the largest diameter out to the rim, and we want to make the rim in stages. We want to go through in small stages on the inside so that we never go back. Once we clean up that inside, we're never going to go back. I'm going to do a test with this teardrop shaper, scraping shaper on the inside. I don't normally use this because it's taking too big of a shaving at a time, but we're going to put a brand new burr on this and see how it does compared to the other high-speed steel. It's taking a good shaving. There's a nice shaving that's not making sawdust in there, so it's working pretty efficiently, but it's taking a big broad brush in there, and sometimes that's easier to clean up tool marks with a broader surface. But let's take a look at it. No, it's not quite as good. There's some roughed out grain that's a little bit rougher than the other cutter, so I don't know quite why. It should be similar, but it's not quite as well, so I'm going to go back and do this with the 3/16 square cutter instead of the teardrop for the remainder of it. Laser's not set over here, so that's good. That is going up. The laser is going to disappear down at the largest diameter. There we go. Clean up my tool marks. Just to check now what my bull gouge will do with a 60-degree angle on it, it still won't get much of that area in the bottom that I could use it for. It's pretty small, and it's going to hit the rim here, so we're not going to be able to use the bull gouge much or at all in here. When we're doing the bottom inside there and using the high-speed steel cutter, there's a tight radius around the tip, and so it's going to be a little bit harder to clean up tool marks. and we're going to put a brand new burr on that to make sure we're using a sharp tool. And then the wax trick, we're going to put wax on the boring bar and the handle, the backrest, everything, so it's floating, and I'll have just my fingertip control. It's just like taking a pencil and writing a curved line on a piece of paper with this. It's really easy to clean up that bottom. And we're going to put the laser on so that we have an accurate measurement of the bottom, so we get a uniform wall thickness, and we can go in and make sure we're going the right way to the grain. Apologize again that we don't have audio to hear this hissing sound of the cut. I'm going from the largest diameter towards the bottom. Okay, we're getting close now to the exciting part when we put the finish on. Wait till you see the inside of this. This is the outside, gives you a little bit of a preview of what's going to be on the inside. Got it all sanded up, and now between centers with a waste block in between here, just driving it with the friction, and we're going to clean this bottom up. Going to make a relatively small bottom. This is more of a decorative piece, not a functional piece, so I'm going to make a small bottom and taper this down into a small foot. So we'll get rid of this waste wood first. Again, we'll just take push cuts, but we have to make them small. We're just driving with the friction of the pad in there. All right, this is where it's going to sit on the table, and this is already done, so we just have to extrapolate that line, that nice little curve all the way down there to a small foot. So I just have to get rid of this little waste area now and taper that in. And don't go back here. This is already done and sanded and finished down to 600 grit sanding. So I don't want to touch this here, and if you notice it's wobbling anyway, watch when I turn the lathe on how much wobble there is because it dried. I'm going to do a pull cut now. I need to make the fibers go, cut the fibers this direction, so I'm going to do a pull cut, handle down, bevel on the side, roll my wrist over, and we'll do a pull cut here to take this waste wood out. Bevel first, roll my wrist, pull it forward. Bevel first, roll my wrist, pull it forward. Small shavings with just the tip of the tool, handle way down. Bevel first, roll my wrist, make a cut, bevel first. Bevels on the side. Now look at this profile under here. How that's kind of a funnel shape. That's too fat right there, isn't it? To carry this curve around, we got to tuck that in a little bit more. Now we're seeing that curve is floating with that surface. That's a much better line there. So I don't want any flat spots or any divots, any humps and bumps in there. All right, now we have to just get this little area where it's going to sit on the table underneath there. I'm going to make this diameter a little smaller. Whatever we left over here, we have to carve away by hand. And then we'll just finish this little bottom part and be done. Then we'll put some finish on her. Use a spindle gouge. You got a steeper angle to get up into that corner and make this tin a little bit smaller. So I can still scrape up my spindle gouge. Got my handle down, slicing cleanly. Quite a bit of grain character here, so I want to make sure that's nice and clean. I don't have to sand it much. I'm going to roll my normal little bead that I do here. Make a little detail. Go back and clean the back side of that up. We'll sand the inside of this bottom a little bit, and then we'll carve that off and be done. Well, here we go. We got her done and all sanded and polished up. Let me get a better close-up picture of it for you here so you can see the silhouette shape. Okay, koa wood polishes up beautifully. This is pretty advanced shape that we did to undercut that shoulder, and got it done nicely, but it accentuates the character of the wood with the 3 crotch branches going around there. There's an area that was a little bit spalted and punky that I had to saturate with some CA glue to polish that up nice. The crotch has a lot of chatoyance and character to it. See the outside area of the crotch there. Okay, if you will please do me a favor. Talk about this on social media or share it with your club members so that they see that I'm doing YouTube videos, and please subscribe and hit the little notification button so you see when I do new ones. It'll give you a notification, but those things help me so that I can produce more of these. So special little project. We'll see you next time.